The year is 1800, springtime, Henrico County, Virginia. A 24-year-old young man by the name of Gabriel is seeking a merchant to sell him a piece of silk for a flag he intends to make. On the flag, Gabriel will write the words, "Death or Liberty." Gabriel's brothers, Solomon and Martin, would start sword making. Every Sunday, Gabriel would visit the town square in Richmond just to memorize the locations of particular areas of interest. Gabriel, his brothers, and his wife would do this in secret for several months, preparing for what historians would later name the Gabriel's Rebellion. Gabriel, a slave owned by a man named Thomas Prosser, was a trained blacksmith and carpenter. He was highly intelligent, literate, and physically fit. He was also inspired by the success of the Haitian Revolution and longed for freedom. All throughout the late winter of 1799 to the summer of 1800, Gabriel plotted and planned his rebellion against his slave owner and other white people in the city of Richmond. Gabriel, his brothers, and other blacksmiths made as many as 12 dozen swords from the metal of the scythes that they used in the fields. While Gabriel was made leader of this revolt, he wasn't the one to come up with the plan. An enslaved man by the name of Sam Bird Jr., who worked with two other enslaved men, George Smith and Jack Bowler, hatched the idea and then relayed the information to Gabriel. Each man would do their part to make the rebellion a reality. They would secretly acquire weapons, resources, and manpower over the next several months. These courageous and ambitious slaves would meet under bridges, near springs, at religious events, and after funerals. Along with the homemade swords, Gabriel's crew made 50 spears by tying bayonets to the ends of poles. They also collected gunpowder, which was used to make musket balls. Gabriel and two other men snuck into the state capitol to stake out the types of weapons they held. They were able to get the keys to the Capitol building by having an inside man. Robert Crowley, a 100-year-old newly freed slave, worked as the manager for the building and gave Gabriel the keys. Gabriel's and others recruited participants any way they could. The main approach was to exaggerate the number of people they recruited. Sam said he knew of 500 men that joined. Another recruiter said 5,000, while others say Gabriel boasted an army of 10,000 men. So here was the plan. All of the enlisted rebel slaves would meet late at night at the bridge near the Prosser plantation. After killing Prosser, his overseers and colleagues, they would walk 4 miles south to Richmond and split into 3 groups. The first 2 groups would set the riverfront warehouse district on fire, collapsing the local economy, and then take control of the only bridge over the James River. The other group of armed rebels would seize control of the state penitentiary and Capitol building, loot the armory for more weapons, kidnap the governor, James Monroe, and hold him for hostage. Gabriel would then use the governor as leverage for their freedom, possibly ending slavery in Virginia for good. While they waited for reinforcements, they would take the treasury and divide the money between them. Gabriel's plot was coming together as planned. More and more men all over Virginia would enlist in the rebellion, those men often having tools and weaponry that could be used in battle. Gabriel's plan was kept on a need-to-know basis when it came to the intricate details. The further away you were from Gabriel's inner circle of men, the less you knew. However, we will learn that simply knowing of the rebellion at all could be a major detriment to the plan. Recruitment wasn't easy. Some of the men took more convincing than others. Some men would outright refuse to participate simply because they were afraid of any retribution that can come their way if they were caught. Some would even decline to join Gabriel's ranks because of the affinity and loyalty they had for their slave owners. Because of this, Gabriel and his leaders would threaten to kill those who would betray the cause. You don't have to participate, but treachery was unforgivable. During a meeting after an enslaved child's funeral, Gabriel finally gave a date for the revolt: Saturday night, August 30th. Gabriel chose this day and time because slaves in that state only worked half a day on Saturdays, so it wouldn't look suspicious seeing large numbers of blacks in Richmond. By the middle of August, Gabriel's plan grew from an idea influenced by enslaved men before him to having hundreds, if not thousands of men ready to do the same for themselves. On the Monday before the planned insurrection, Gabriel held a final meeting. In this meeting, all of Gabriel's lieutenants confirmed their positions, plans, and personnel for their roles in the event. In response, Gabriel began to distribute the weapons they had been making since the early spring. In total, Gabriel estimated that they recruited 500 to 600 men across 10 counties in the state of Virginia. They were ready. The day finally came, August 30th. Gabriel, his brothers, his wife, and Jack all awaited for nightfall. However, as they waited, Gabriel noticed a sudden change in the weather as dark storm clouds would begin to crowd the sky. A big bad rainstorm was heading their way. Despite this, about 1,000 slaves showed up. As the rain poured down over Virginia, doubt and uncertainty started to permeate among the enslaved rebels. The rain immobilized a large number of them as well. Of those doubtful and immobile rebels was a man by the name of Pharaoh. Relative to many other rebels, Pharaoh was a new recruit, having only joined the rebellion in the last few weeks leading up to it. Pharaoh was also someone that Gabriel would have normally avoided in the first place. Pharaoh was a slave that had a relatively positive relationship with his slave owner. Unlike the slave plantations and farms in the city, rural slaves and slave owners would often work, eat, and drink together. Not only this, Pharaoh's owner was on record gifting Pharaoh with coats, cashmere, and other cloths. Pharaoh had a wife and son. He also knew that his slave owner had a proclivity to grant slaves their freedom for a low price. He also contemplated if he could secure the freedom of himself and his family if he simply told his slave owner about Gabriel's plot. Pharaoh consulted with another slave on a plantation he worked named Tom and asked him what he should do. Tom, who because he was so fond of and close to the family that owned him, Gabriel and other men avoided recruiting him, suggested to Pharaoh that he tell the slave owner about the insurrection planned for that night. So they did. Tom and Pharaoh met with their owner and told him that there was a plot to kill him and other slave owners. When their owner asked who the man was behind the conspiracy, one of them quietly whispered, "Prosser's Gabriel." The slave owner, being one of the targeted men to be killed in the revolt, bolted to alarm as many white men as he could. However, due to the bad weather, it was essentially impossible to confirm what Pharaoh and Tom reported to him. Despite this, before Mosby was able to fall asleep, one of his house servants told him that the rebellion's date had changed to Sunday night. After this news was corroborated by another slave on a different plantation in a different city, Governor Monroe was made aware of the situation that was brewing under their noses for months. The governor didn't take the news lightly and did everything he could to thwart any successful attempts at insurrecting the state without setting off too much alarm. He removed the guns and ammunition from the Capitol building and put them in a penitentiary. He also deployed 3 military officers in the city of Richmond. By Sunday morning, word had gotten to Gabriel that several slave patrols were arresting blacks in the area. Upon hearing this, Gabriel escapes and disappears, as well as many others. By Monday, there was a full-scale search and investigation of any and all members of the rebellion. Gabriel was able to elude capture for almost a month. He was found on a boat belonging to a Christian white man who was against slavery due to a black crewman telling authorities that Gabriel was aboard. Gabriel was immediately arrested. His trial began October 6th. Gabriel sat in court as he watched men he thought he could trust sit on the stand and confess to everything. This is largely why the details of this story were so preserved in this way. Gabriel was unsurprisingly found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. In total, about 70 men were tried, 44 were convicted, and 26 of those, including Gabriel, were hanged. The rest of the men were either pardoned or transported out of the state. This young, resourceful, and determined man, even in defeat, changed the course of history. The state of Virginia almost went bankrupt trying to allocate funds to local militias and military forces to stop the rebellion. Many people concluded that if it was not for the rainstorm, Gabriel's rebellion would have been a success. If Gabriel had been successful, the political, social, and economic trajectory of the slave state would have been changed forever.
Hey, if you want to watch the full video, subscribe to Hotep History's Patreon page today. You get commercial-free videos a whole week before everyone else. Show your love for Hotep and history by becoming a patron today. And never forget Hotep and Build.